Gemara. Today's daf is daf kuf mem gimel. The last thing we learned was if a person decides to give he says to one child, "I'm going to give you together with the child that your mother one day is going to have." Now, obviously, the child that mother's going to have, she wasn't even pregnant at the time. Nothing happened. There's no kinyan. It's not. There's nothing here at all. At least in Uber, the whole discussion we had when the baby was inside the mother's womb, the baby existed. And the question is, is it considered bolam or not? But here, there's nothing here at all. So the question is the other boy that is live here, since he put him together, does he receive anything? And we had a machlekes if a talia is zeiche b'makom banya. In this case here, where part of the king doesn't work and part of the king does work, what happens? So we started learning the three opinions. So we're on the top of the page. We'll start again at the top of the page. It says the Gemara. The Itma we learned 3 lines from the top of the page. Daf kuf mem gimel amar aleph. We learned Itma. We learned kani kichamay. If you tell somebody, I want you to acquire just like a donkey acquires, like kind of, obviously nothing happened because the donkey is not kohen, and I said you should be the same. What happens if I say at v'chamay? You and the donkey together should be kohen. How do we view that? Rab Nachman says if you say to somebody, I want you to acquire this together with a donkey. Now, a donkey is not trying to make any acquisitions. What happens there? We have 3 opinions. The Nachman says, what I meant was, whatever you should be koina, you'll be koina, and whatever the donkey should be koina is not going to happen. So that's what I meant from the first instance, because I knew a donkey can't be koina, so I meant you should only be koina half. But Nuna says, sorry, I skipped a line, didn't I? Nachman says, sorry, you couldn't have. Nuna says, loy amaklum. Since part of what I said didn't happen at all, since I put them together, so I didn't really mean that the whole kinyan should happen at all. The whole thing is I never in my mind never made it up. I never really meant it to happen. Rav Shesha says kanahaku. Since I knew from the outset that a donkey can't be koina, I meant whoever can be koina should be koina. Now there's a big machlekes in the Rishonim, not even though they're saying so many words. What's going on here? If you look at the Rashbam carefully and many of the Shainim, the problem here is umnana. In other words, we're assessing what did you think? You knew that a donkey can't be koina. So what were you thinking when you said I want you and the donkey to be koina the field together? So we have 3 opinions as to understanding the psyche of the person. One said that I meant that you should get whatever you're entitled to, and another part was just playing around. Another one says that I meant that you should get nothing because I put it together because if the entire thing can happen, then I don't really mean it. Another one says, since I knew the donkey can't be, I meant you should be kind of everything. That's one view. The other view is that no. The other view is that I put it together as one kinyan. This one field, you and the donkey are coming together. And if half of what I said is bottle, the entire thing becomes bottle. And that's the machlekes. Just like we say palgin in the bura, do we say over here also, do we divide my words? Because I said yunachamay. Do we divide my words that I could make a half a kinyan? Or do we say no, that since part of this kinyan is bottled, the entire thing is bottled? The Mordechai has, in the Rishonim, they have interesting questions. And it seemed the question is based on this. Just give you an example. It's full of tzasan on this and Simpson. The question is, if I say to you, be kind of 2 things. This thing is davar shebal olam, and this thing's a davar shaloi olam. I put them together. I want you to be kind of the fruits on the tree together with the car. The car is right here. The fruit on the tree hasn't grown yet. So davar what happens? Are you kind of the car or nothing happens? So the same question is whether it's umdana or whether it's what do you call it? Over here, it's not like a case of a donkey where a donkey cannot be kind at all. So therefore, we say there's no gemar das. Over here, you can say the guy didn't know the halachas that you can't be kind of the fruit. So he meant you should be kind of the car, you be kind of the fruits. So if it doesn't work out the fruits, I'm very happy you be kind of the car. So in the case of umdana, maybe here the king would work. But in the case of the problem is that it's a technical problem. I put the 2 together, and if one part of the kinyan doesn't work, neither does the other part of the kinyan work, then it falls apart. And the Rishonim have a number of such chakiras where one part of the kinyan can't be, and one part of the kinyan could be, and I put them together, what happens? And it all revolves around this question: is it umdana or is it a technical problem? You can't be, make a half a kinyan. But anyway, getting back to our Gemara here. Rab Shesha says, since the donkey cannot be kindness, so therefore you're kind of everything. Because I know a donkey can't be kindness. So now comes Rab Shesha says, I mean, how do I know? How do I know this halacha? It's a big chiddush. I only gave you half the field. The other half is to a donkey. Why should you be kind of the entire field? Where do I know this from? The Tanya we learned, Rab Yaisi says, Ein lach mar bekisha. The different interpretation of kishas, generally we say is cucumbers. Ein lach mar bekisha ela pnimi shabai. That in kishas, in a cucumber, the very inner core is bitter. And therefore, we know when it comes to truma, it says by truma, you should not give truma from a poor quality fruit or vegetable or grain for good quality. In fact, you did an aveda if you do that. So if you're going to give cucumbers, now normally an average, we learned more, but see, an average person gives 2%, right? So 2 for every 100, 1 out of 50. That's an average person. So to have a whole thing of cucumbers, well, the way that Ben Geshem adds, but not every cucumber has the same size of inner core that is bitter. Some cucumbers have a bit thicker inner core, some have less. So if you're going to give, let's say you want to give 2%, and you're going to give 1 cucumber for the 50 cucumbers you have, what happens if this 1 cucumber that you have, let's say, has more bitter in it than flesh, comes out? In order for you to have the 2%, you're giving min hara el atoiv. So what do we do? You give an extra cucumber. What's the worst thing? You give a little bit more, but if you give an extra cucumber, you definitely have now enough, flesh to cover. You have of toiv 2%. That's what it says here. So it's like this. Rabbi Yossi said, "Ein loch mar bekishas el primisha." But only part of a cucumber that is bad is the inner core. Therefore, when you want to give truma for 1 cucumber and all the other cucumbers, is moisiv ala chitzon shaboy. You add to the chitzon. So some people learn that means you put another cucumber. Some people say you just give the outside of the cucumber. Anyhow, we're telling you give truma. Now, why does it work? You're giving good and bad, right? You're saying that this cucumber should be the truma for all the other cucumbers. So since there's bad in it together with the good, so just like the bad part is not really truma, the good part also. It's like atvachamayr. Yeah, but you're not being much. That's if you hold like Bereda, you're going to say that this bad is this, but let's say we don't follow Bereda. You're doing this cucumber I'm holding in my hand is a truma. The rest is not truma. This is only tevel. So this here that is truma has in it a part that cannot be truma, the bitter part, and you have a part that could be truma. It's like here's an chamod, and what do we say? That the entire that it works. It's as if the bitter part is non-existent. The chamoid is non-existent. Says Gemara, what are you comparing? Mehat Torah, it is a good truma. In fact, we'll have more truma. The whole machlekes a Bava Basra Daf, the other mahani or loy mahani. So the famous Rabbi Loi said that the truma is chal mehat Torah. Because if it wasn't chal, then what aveda did you do? Nothing happened. There was no truma here. So it must be that the truma is chal even on the bad part. But you didn't have aveda. You shouldn't have done it. You shouldn't have used the something bitter for something else. So therefore, the chamoy here could be kind of. It's not like a normal case of chamoy that cannot be kind of. Shine also, but the rice truma you see. Even the bad part of the cucumber is a valid truma. If the truma is chal on this entire cucumber, including the bad part. How do you take the truma is chal? It says you shouldn't have an aved if you did the wrong, if you did something bad over good. Even the kaddish, if you tell me that the truma is not chal on the bad part, then it says chalama. What aved did you do? The aved is you made truma something ra, but if the truma is not chal on the ra, then nothing happened. So this is not like a chamoy that can't acquire anything. Here it is acquiring. So no knife from here whatsoever. Only Mordechai said to Rav Ashi, fascinating Gemara here. Mosiv Rab Avia to Yufta. Rab Avia asked a question on this whole thing and goes as follows. We had in Kedushin, Maise, Bechomesh, Noshin, there were 5 women. Maybe had Omach a Bava if somebody gives Kedushin to 2 sisters, and do we say that this Kedushin, you just don't know which sister it was. Do we say there's Kedushin here, or we say Kedushin does not grow to go to Bia, the Kedushin not chal in the first place? But what happened in this story wasn't just 2 sisters, there were 5 women there. Two of them were sisters. So two of them were not shaykh to be Kurdish to you, but what do you call it? But the other three can. What happened was there were two sisters there. A guy took a basket full of figs. And the chiddush is, it was theirs. And you remember the more they learned after me a number of dinim. One of the dinim is that if you steal from a woman and then you give it back to her, she's not mekudeshes at all, because she agreed to it because she wants her stuff back, not because she's masking to the kedusha, and it's not yours to give her. But over here, the chiddush is that even though originally it was theirs, but shel shvi it was the year Shemitah. So what happens to all your produce in the year Shemitah? It's hefker. So therefore, even though Chatchil was yours, but now it's hefker, I took it. This man took it, and he gave it to them, to all five women, and he said to all five of them, "You're mekudesh to me." All five of them. But you're all mekudesh me, but it's chakol, and obviously the two sisters can't be mekudesh. Each one's achayis ishta, so neither of them can be mekudesh. But what happened was we keep achmed they call them. One of accepted the basket on behalf of the mole, which we learned from another din that you can have that. And omru chachamim ein achayis mekudesh. The three women are mekudesh, but the two sisters are not. Seems from there. Now, this is a case of kni'at v'chamoy, because it's one kinyan for five women, but two of them are not shaykh, they're the sisters. And achayis with them mekudesh. How nachri is the other three women were not related mekudeshes. Now. Why at the chamoyri? This is mama's the case of at the chamoyri. So the chayde doesn't that prove that at the chamoyri you kind everything, that the at is kind of the whole thing, as if the chamoyri is not existent. This is a raya to Rav Sheshes. That's the kash and the other two. And Nachman and Amnuna. Omer Rav Ashi said, now I understand. I knew. Now that you came to me today and you asked me a question about they're kind of the whole chalkola, and these three women are the ones on the Mekudesh, and the two they get nothing, and the two don't work at all. So the Chayda says clearly from here, yeah, but who gets the whole chalkola? Then you everything. And you're kind of everything like Rav Sheshes. So Rav Ashi says, now I understand. I had last night a cholam that Rab Huna bar Avia came to me, son of Rabia, and I couldn't. Yeah, no, didn't ask the question. I saw him in my dream. Yeah, Rab Avia asked the question. So he said, Rab Ashi, I had this dream. I saw him, and I didn't know why. Now I do know exactly why. Because today you came to me, we asked me a question about Avia. But I want you to know that's not a question. It's interesting because the expression it's like he has a question which knocks off the previous. Okay, but now said the Moshe of Avia to you to love me. He asked me a question. I said to him, no, love me your kimna. Because didn't we already establish that the Amar Harui Mekemla be this Kaddish. When he gave the Chalkala, he didn't say you're all Mekudesh to me. He added one word. Those who could be Mekudesh to me should be Mekudesh to me. And the story. No, there's no Chamoy here. I would have been like I said to his wife, the Chosai Lach Ulabanayach, my the Chosim. So we don't resolve this Machlekes at the moment. I would have been like I said to his wife, the Chosai Lach Ulabanayach. My Nechosim are to you, I'm dividing my assets to you and to my children. How do we? So how much is he giving to his wife? He's giving a gift, and to my children. How much is he giving? Like another Yiddish, equal to all the children, or maybe half, 50-50. Oh, but he said, he said, kind of half. It's a very puzzling Gemara. I'll show you in a minute why the Gemara is puzzling. Well, but how do I know? At the time you learned, Rebbe says, when you divide the lechem upon the 12 loaves, 2 loaves we don't divide, but the 10 loaves we divide, the Aaron HaKohen also gets, how much does he get? It says possible, so you would think that Aaron gets what, according to the day that says over here, the wife gets equal to the sons, then he should get equal to the Kohanim. But it says in Mefedish, Machzel Aaron, Machzel Bana. 5 challahs go to Aaron, and 5 challahs go to all the Kohanim. Abai said, no right from there. You know why it's not right from there? Because the Pasuk wouldn't have said it, Aaron would have gotten the challah anyway, like any other Kohen. He's a Kohen, and he's there all the time. He's there all the time. Why did the Torah have to say Aaron Levonim to add something? So then it's obvious as Abaye to add what? Instead of getting just like an ordinary coin, he gets half. But when he says each is not entitled to get anything, the Yerusha goes to the children. So he's adding his wife to make her another Yiddish. Why do you think he's giving her half? That's a biased question of Yosef. Bishlam Hasam Aaron Bar Chalukah, who he anyway was entitled. So let's add more. Give him a half. Or Bishlam Bashirushi, or your wife, he's not entitled, he's not there. Is Daya Shetito Gachem and Abanim. So when he says, "Look, I'm going to give her also," why should you think you give me more than any of the other children? So he has a question on Abaye's question. You're arguing Rabbi Yosef, so you think Rabbi Yosef is wrong. But they're not asking a question; they're just telling a fact. There was a story, incident in Adoi, and Shmuel was the head of Adoi. But Shmuel Palga, this very story, and Shmuel gave the wife half. But a similar thing happened to Tveria. But Rabbi and Palga gave half. The two leading Amoraim of that time. So a technical question on Abaye. And so furthermore, another story. So they don't really ask. All they're doing is bringing a raya for kids. They're not asking on his logic. The logic that Abaye says makes sense. But they're just bringing a raya, technical proofs from other stories. We saw how others paskin, Shmuel, and then we have a story of Rebbe. What happened was once the king levied a tax on the Jewish community that they have to pay for the crown. The Shadle Malka Abuli Istrugi. We had the word fruitful. Abuli are the rich ones, the rich people, the noblemen, and Istrugi either are, some people say, means the poor people, or Istrugi means the officers who don't really have money, but they have pull and so on. They have the contact, the network. So Omar Rebbe said, now what happened? Rebbe said, he said, I want these two groups of people to pay for my crown. Now, you would think the rich can pay a lot more than a civil employee, a government employee. Yet, Omar Rebbe, Nesva Abuli Palga, Palga. Each one should give half because you mentioned both names. Each one gives half. The same thing, Isha Banim should be half and half. That's what they're asking a third question on the Bible. That Gemara says not a kasha. How would you get there? The king only demanded money from the noblemen because they're rich and they can afford it, and he demanded money. What happened was the officers want to show how nice they are, so they start helping him out. Oh, the king, you guys want to help out? Hey, the other Malka that become Messiah, the king knew that the officers were helping out. So therefore, then he said, you know what? I want them also officially to pay. And that became along and said, so what's he adding over here? They were helping anyway. So why do you have to nominate these officers? Obviously, he wants them to pay equal to the nobleman. You're ready to get involved, pay equal. Exactly. So the same logic I said before. Aaron anyway was a kohen. Yet the Torah says give to Aaron a bonus must be to make me equal. Here also they were involved anyway. I said the king when he said he levied a tax on them as well, he wanted to lift it half and half. Don't always be a volunteer. Same thing happened Pare. Why do you have to add these trugi? Remember the halipalga. No, right. But anyway, so we shlug about it purely because Shmuel Abiyachan Paskin like Rabbi Yosef. Taking about further, mostly with Rabbi Zayda, the question says, if you follow Rabbi Yosef, that's the question. It says, a guy wants to make a very large mincha flower offering, and he says, Meya Isaron, he's giving a large amount, 100 Isaron, a measure of Isaron, 100 of them. Now we know that the maximum size of a keli by mincha is 60 tails. In fact, that's the famous Abzeda. Say Abzeda there, that in other words, if you don't have to necessarily mix the mincha, but you can't have 61 because you cannot mix it. Now the question is, who cares? You don't have to mix it anyway. At least it's roll bila. If you can mix it, then it's good enough. But 61 is too much in a pot. You can't mix it. The maximum is 60. You're offering 100. So what do? You use two pots. How much should you put into each pot? Says the Gemara. Is a lahavi b'shnei kelim, brings two kelim. Maybe shishi b'keyachet v'aboyim b'keyach. 60 here and 40 here. Sorry?
Like one small one.
Yeah, the idea is because 60 is a max and you put 60 here. Now, if you say palga, it should only be 50-50. No, 60-40. And then it says, imhevi, chamishi, b'kliyachad, v'chamishi, kliyachad yotza. Sounds like imhevi ilchat chiloi. Now, why in the world is he asking from the second part? Why doesn't he like say in the other Shemash? Why he ask from the first part? It's clear, 60 and 40. But then you can argue some answers 60 and 40 because a keli is meant for 60. So like by Kiddush, we want a kois mole. Kois moles. Maybe you should fill at least one pot with stuff, so then 60 full. Something like that, yeah. So then it's 60 exactly. But from the second part, it says b'di'evet. When b'di'evet, if a you say 100 is half and half, can't say b'di'evet. Maybe there's a hidur here, but it's not b'di'evet. B'di'evet sounds like it's not really a good idea. Sounds like him hating the chatzul. The East Haggadah, we tell me called Gagavna Palga Palgu. If you tell me every time I say two things, and the best way, ideal, but the optimum way is half and half. So you do 50-50. So the Gemara, what do you compare? Awesome. This person is mamish being very generous. Anan Sadi, and he wants to bring a massive thing. If that's what his intention to bring a massive thing, 60s Australian looks very massive. So therefore, you make 160 and 140. Could we go after his kavanah? Anan Sadi, we're convinced the high gavra, this person, he wanted to bring a big carbon. The only reason why he offered to do it to Kalim had the other you can't bring 100 in one keli because the maximum is 60. Is kamba the efshel since the whole idea is to give it in a very the hachavadik way, so that's why he had to give 60. But generally speaking, 50. The Gemara concludes, the halacha is like Rabbi Yosef in three machlekes, and we had a big machlekes in the Rishonim whether whenever Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef argued, the halacha Rabbi Yosef in three cases, and we had a machlekes where this is only in Bava Basra and this is Kol Kula. The halacha is always like Rabbi except three cases. And now as Rashbam says here, everywhere Rabbi Yosef halacha like Rabbi, so we have to highlight that in three cases the halacha Rabbi Yosef. What are the three cases? First, and they're all three in Bava Basra, these three cases. One is Inyan, we said that one is Besada, we had in the first pedic, where if one of the brothers says, look, we're dividing Yerusha, this particular field is right next to my field, give it to me, I want this chelik. Whether you can have that time or not, do we say Kaifan on Middle's Daim, or we don't say, and Rabbi Yosef kept on saying, but the brothers can say, the water here is better, the sunlight here is better, why should you get this field? And it's not Midas Daim to argue, we want the field that's contiguous to yours. Then we have Inyan, till when you can change your mind. You have to be talking about mamish, the subject matter, or as long as he's still sitting there, you can, even though you're not really talking about the subject matter anymore, as long as we haven't stood up yet from this original conversation, we can still change our mind. And the last one is right here, machza. When a person says, Ishtei Bon, does it mean half and half or kolot? Now the Modna Zach is, Rabba is not mentioned once in the Gemara. Where's Rabba? It's Abaya. And yet the Rashbam says here that the reason the Rashbam says, I'll quote you, the Kula Gemara Rabba Rabbi Yosef Hirzik Rabba, he said, Rabbi Yosef Mahani class. I don't know. Because there's no Rabba here. I don't know. Okay, let's continue. Somebody sent pieces of material of Zaid, of linen, let's say, or of silk to his family. I didn't say for who it is. We're talking about Shechim I was dying, and he's giving away, and we don't know who he's giving to. So we say, Haruyin Lebani Lebanim. Anything which is suitable for the sons is for the sons. Haruyin Lebanis Lebanis. No, okay, you want to show him the Shechim. The Mom says Matana, but he didn't say what it's for. So the question is, who do we give it to? Who is it for? So the Gemara, Haruyin Leban Lebanim. Ruin lebanus lebanus, and if it's something for a woman's dress, it says for bonus. Now, why doesn't the Gemara say, and if it's row for his wife, it's for his wife? In fact, he should be the first one. So that Beit Gesher says it must be talking about he has no wife. The other Shem don't mention that. So it sounds like even though he had a wife, if he doesn't say that it's for her expressly, we automatically assume it's for his children. Then he says the most interesting thing. When we say go to the daughters, if he has no daughters-in-law, if he sends something and he has a daughter-in-law and a married daughter, we're going to assume it's for the daughter-in-law. Because the married daughter, he trusts the husband will take care of her. He has more fondness for his daughter-in-law, his son's wife, because his son has to take care of that girl, so he wants to help out, rather than his own natural biological daughter, because he's convinced that their family will take care of her. Then definitely he's giving his daughter. But the bantil and sibin, then leishavi bantim is other kalasan. Oh, when we say making a distinction of a daughter-in-law, and a daughter is only if the daughter is married to somebody else, so there's someone to take care of her. But if he has daughters at home that are not married, then of course his daughters come first, then his daughter-in-law. Now the word about his wife, yeah. The thing, the others like the Rashbam doesn't mention at all about the wife, means like the wife doesn't even come into the cheshbon here. Why would you think that? But so he says, okay. Ahuda Amalei, a guy said as he was dying, the Chosai Lebonai, my asset should go to my sons. The thing was, he only had one, he said in plural, my sons. But Havele Bra Ubarta, he only had one son and one daughter. And the question is, when you say sons, plural, do you call your daughters also sons? We had before the word, but we have Banon Nukrin. So we do find the concept sons that can be daughters. Or do we say son to son? I said in plural. We'll have to bring a precedent, which we will, that you can talk about one son in Lashon Rabim. So the question is, will a person call a son my sons? And what's he trying to say? That my daughter should not get the normal takonas that says, you remember, a girl gets 10% so that she can get married. No, that doesn't occur here. Perhaps like Karu Incha nobody calls one son many sons. Well, and he wants to give her more than what she is entitled to. What's he trying to say here? Omar by Toshma says, B'nei Don Chushim, and you only have one son. And it says in the version that talks about how Don became the largest Shevet in population, and yet he all started from one boy, one kid, Chushim. The chus that he had, because what he did with Esav, so he was benched with Peru. So therefore, you see clearly, B'nei Don Chushim. Says the more interesting. Who told you the Chushim is the name of a son? Dilma Kedatani Dvei Chizkiah. You know what Chizkiah said? Chushim here is a description, not a name. That Don had many sons, like reeds that all grow together, in a group, and that's what it means. Not a name at all. Who said he only had one son, and that's why it says Lashon Rabin, not just in one Lashon. And Tosha says, and when did he have all these sons? Because when they came to Mitzrayim, we know exactly how many they had. It says, the Shivim Nefesh. Must have happened as soon as he came to Mitzrayim. Suddenly he filled up. He had a lot of children. So no Raya, Chushim maybe is not even the name of a son. El. So I'll tell you, we find in the Torah later on, it says, B'nei Palu, the sons of Palu, is Eliyav. He only had one son and says B'nei. Rabbi Yosef says, in Divrei Yom, it says, B'nei Esan Azariah. Unfortunately, we'll try to understand what's Rabbi Yosef adding to Rava. Rava brings a passing in the Torah where you have B'nei, and Paul is Eliyav. That's it. End of story. That you can say Lashon Rabim for a thing. What's Rabbi Yosef come along bringing for Divrei Yomim? But so Rabbi Yaakov Emden writes that we're talking about what a person means when he says Bonai. Bring that eye from the Torah. What to mean? What does one thing do with another? But Divrei Hayom, even though it's part of Tanakh, it's Ksuvim actually, it's not Nevi'im, it's Ksuvim, is written, if you read Divrei Hayom, it's written in a different style, the way people talk. And that's why there's so many differeces in Divrei Hayom than the rest of Tanakh. That's how they always try to explain it. So the way people talk, and yet it still says, B'nei Eson Azariah, we see even people, when they say Lashon Rabim, and it could be on a Yochid. Another person, a guy said, my Nechasim is to my son. Havele Bra, he had a son, Ubarbra, and a grandson. The question is, does the grandson get anything or not? Now, L'chayda, we could be talking, so Rashbam said, maybe even another say, Dafka the Pshad, I guess Rashbam said, or a grandson from another son. His second son passed away. And that son had a son. And he's saying, I'm giving to my son X. Is including the grandson of the other son, because B'nei Bonim Arein Kebonim or not. How far do we take it? So the question is, again, we're talking about in the vernacular. When people talk, what do they mean? Says, people do call a grandson a son. Nobody calls his grandson, even though certain did in B'nei Bonim Kebonim. The mitzvah of Talmud Torah and other things, but not here. The bani mutter b'bnei banim. If you're not allowed to have any hana from the sons, you're definitely allowed to have hana from the grandsons. So we see when people talk, son is a son, even though in halacha certain din in bnei banim kebanim, and including the famous Rashi about the mitzvah of kibbutz, and brought down in the Ramah in Shulchan Aruch. Fascinating. The Ramah brings Shulchan Aruch Pirush Rashi on the Torah as his basis for that halacha. In Benjamin Beis, and you're there. What's interesting is we don't bring the Rashi, we just learn the Chitas. Rashi brings that Avraham Avinu said that Achoisi, and why do you say Achoisi? Because she is like the daughter of Terach, because B'nei Bonim Arein Gebonim. So I'm not lying. So I'm not lying when I said that she's my sister. Florida that people speak also. I guess there he was trying to find a chokhmah how to save himself, so you can't bring it out from there. It says the Mishnah. He left behind older sons and younger sons. Now, and they didn't divide the estate yet. They didn't divide the estate yet. If the G'daylim, the older ones, worked hard and invested, and now the Gemara will explain later, they did not use their own money. They invested the money from the part of the assets, the estate. They used that money to build on the estate. Every single heir benefits from all that because since you didn't divide it, it's everybody's. However, Im Omru, they said, Rusi, I want you to look right now what our father left behind, the state of affairs, the house is decrepit, and we have to put money and everything else. We're going to invest money, and we're going to benefit from the extra. In that case, the shevach is for themselves. Now, who exactly did they speak to? So Rashbam said they spoke to witnesses or to a bezin. And we have to talk about why do you have to go to bezin for it? All we need is witnesses to see what the state of affairs was, what the father left behind. And they're saying we're investing our own money. Anyway, the same thing applies to Isha, that the husband decided died, and the husband decided that the woman should yashin. Now, exactly what the woman yashin, we'll talk about later, because a woman doesn't yash her husband. Isha, she's bichas and a chasim. This is the chasim belongs to everybody. She gets a chelik of it, but also the children. If she worked on it and improved it from the assets, using money from the assets, everybody gets a fair share. But she says, look what my husband left me. Look at my husband lefty. And she then put more money and time of her own, then she gets the benefit. Same idea, but the chiddush is that a woman also yashas, which we'll talk about later. Rab Chaviva, the son of Rabbi Yosef, who's the son of Rabbi, said the name of his grandfather. Loi Shanu, when do we say that the brothers who put in time and effort and say, Ru, what happened, they're entitled to the benefit? When do we say that the Shevach is be'emtza, that everyone gets a chelik in the nechasim, even though only older brothers worked on it, is they use the money from the estate to improve the estate. But if they use their own, then then it's all. Then they get the benefit. Even if the father only left them behind, let's say a cistern, a well with a cover on it, and the only job that they had was to make sure, and they would charge people money to use the water to drink or whatever it is, and they would make sure they put a lid on it so that nobody who had no right to go there should drink the water. He let them into a daini, and they people use either for drinking water or irrigation water, and they controlled it. So then the revenue that comes in is divided amongst all the Yoshim. The machmas atzmu, they're the ones who have to watch it. And nevertheless, you just said that the only time we say that you split everything equally is if you're using money from the state. Here, it's a question of watching it. And they're the ones who are watching it. The older ones are watching it. So the young ones are not watching it. The older ones are watching it. So this is like a case of their own investment. And yet it says clearly that the dividends or the revenue is split equally according to all the Yoshim. Why? This is their own time, their own effort. So we answer, Daina is different because the whole Indian is there's no money being put into it. It's only what you have to watch and make sure that nobody removes the lid. And anybody could do it, even though the poil they're not doing it, and even though let's say we're talking about an infant, a toddler that's not shy to it, but if the law is uniform, the fact is before we're talking about putting money into it, that came from the state. Here, the sachak or the pool is that you're watching it. That's not what we're talking about, and therefore any dividends that come in is split equally. We'll continue tomorrow night at 9:45 or